16. Had a talk. Additional content added to the latter half of the previous chapter. To avoid any misunderstanding, Saikaira is not someone with zero romantic experience. He's had girlfriends like anyone else, and he's not a virgin. Though more often than not, the breakups came with the classic line, "Which matters more, your job or me?" So even if this is another world, he knows his current relationship with Aresh is strange. At first, it truly had been an act to save a life. And afterward, Aresh's excessive concern and management of Saikaira's condition. Saikaira had assumed it was either a kind of atonement for the person who got abducted along the way from another world, or that Aresh was just exceptionally soft-hearted, or rather, the type who can't leave something he's once picked up unattended. But that still doesn't explain yesterday's kiss. Saikaira tried to get his hands on medicine, a tonic, but minor discomfort could be ignored. Yet Aresh went out of his way to treat him with magic, and then suppressed the magic intoxication that followed by using what was probably the #1 most partner-selective act of physical contact, a kiss. Maybe it doesn't count because they've already had sex. Or maybe it was the kind of thing one does for a pet. Saikaira can't read Aresh's true intentions, but Aresh has become someone Saikaira can't ignore either. Part of it is that Aresh is the only person who truly considers Saikaira's physical condition. And in the present situation, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say Saikaira's life is in Aresh's hands. On top of that, Aresh is a representative figure of this country, and both professionally and socially, Saikaira can't afford to treat him carelessly. Again, spotting the name Third Nights on the document he'd picked up, Saikaira let out a sigh. The miasma damage from the demonic forest was progressing, slowly but steadily. The Saintess's dispatch was still a ways off. In the first place, he didn't even know whether the Saintess's so-called purification was something that ended in a single use, which made budgeting extremely difficult. Saikaira was still far too poorly informed about this country. About Aresh, too, about everything. He should gather information before he tried to evaluate anything. For now, he tossed the Third Night's shamelessly excessive reimbursement request onto the rejected pile and moved on to the next document. If he didn't hurry, he'd be forced into lunch break mid-task and dragged to the dining hall again. Determined to finish at least this one case, he focused so hard on the paperwork that he didn't notice the stir spreading through accounting, until Norbert slapped his shoulder a little too firmly, making him finally look up. Deputy Sub-Administrator Kondo of the accounting department. His Excellency the Chancellor is calling for you. Come. So why is it that the important people in this country never make appointments in advance? Is almost equal to 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 is almost equal to. Sorry to call you out while you're working. You sure are. More like, if you know that, then don't call me out. That was what Saikaira thought, of course, but he pasted on a smile and replied, "Not at all." Swallowing words is a working adult's basic skill. The room he was brought to wasn't the Chancellor's office, but more like a reception room. Seated at opposite ends of a rectangular, antique-styled table, he was offered tea. For the sake of calming himself, he took a sip. Even if Saikaira was an abductee from another world, sitting face-to-face like this with the country's Chancellor, essentially the Prime Minister, was an abnormal situation. This was only the second time he'd spoken to him directly. The first had been when the position was forced onto him. In terms of work, he believed he was acknowledged. But Saikaira was fully aware that his own existence was an outsider's. And surely word had reached them that he'd told Shiraishi Yua, the Saintess, things that could disadvantage this country. Even Aresh had warned him. The Chancellor has his eye on you. To be suddenly summoned and made to speak one-on-one. There were secretaries or guards in the room, but still, there was no way Saikaira wouldn't be on guard. He didn't intend to die for nothing, and more than anything, he really didn't want to be made to abandon his current job. "How are you feeling?" "Huh." Because he'd been sitting bolt upright, braced for impact, he couldn't respond properly to the Chancellor, Camille's, first words. He immediately realized it was just a common seasonal greeting and answered, "I'm doing well. I'm fine, thank you." "No, I heard rumors you were taken to the medical office, and I was worried. I only felt unwell for a bit. I'm fine now." That wasn't a lie, he really was fine now. "I see. That's good then. You are, after all, a summoned guest from another world. If anything is inconvenient, tell me. Judging by this, he likely knew already that the air was toxic and the food was bad, and that overeating could kill him. Saikaira answered with a glued-on smile. You're too kind. Everyone has treated me very well, so I'm all right. I see. I'm glad to hear it. By the way, there were some things I wanted to ask about the budget proposal you prepared the other day. As if to say, that's the end of that, Camille narrowed his blue-gray eyes. So it really was only social pleasantry. As Saikaira answered the points Camille raised with the best knowledge he had, he secretly felt relieved. So it was about work. If it was about work, then even a sudden summons couldn't be helped. Your way of thinking really is interesting. When it comes to budgeting, your lack of knowledge can't be denied, but it's unavoidable. I'm sorry. There's simply too much in this world that's unknown to me. I'm still studying. No, it's fine. I think you've been learning well, especially while working. Naturally. As someone involved in accounting, not knowing this world's, and this country's, standards would be unacceptable. On days when there were few documents he could bring home, and on his days off, he devoted all his time to acquiring knowledge about this world. And during meals, he asked Aresh and Norbert questions. He considered all of it part of the job. By the way, you really don't listen to the Saintess at all, do you? He'd completely shifted into work mode. He'd been treated kindly, and he'd let his guard down. The tea that was passing down his throat seemed to catch in the wrong place, making a strange gulping sound. You came to this world together, and I hear you were quite worried, offering her advice. Don't you want to hear how she's doing? Camille asked in a gentle face and voice, and Saikaira understood. So it really had gotten back to them. He'd expected to be scolded for saying unnecessary things to the country's precious Saintess. But Camille's expression didn't change as he waited for Saikaira's answer. From his position, and from the man himself, it was clear he wasn't someone easily handled. Depending on his answer, Saikaira thought he might be dismissed, isolated, and in the worst case, executed. But as that thought formed, Saikaira exhaled softly. Your Excellency, if you were forced, against your will, into an unfamiliar land, and there happened to be a child from your homeland whom you'd never met before, how would you feel? At Saikaira's question, the corner of Camille's eye twitched, but he didn't otherwise break his expression, nor did he correct Saikaira's manner of speaking. He answered, If I had the leeway, I might protect them. Just as Saikaira expected. Camille was the same kind of person as him. Right. To me, she's about that much. She's someone to be protected, but only if I have the leeway to do it. And besides, she's receiving generous protection because the country needs her far more than it needs a heretic like me. Yua was a minor. Back in Japan, she would have been someone to be protected, and Saikaira, an adult, would have been on the side that protects. But abducted into another world, and treated carefully and preciously for the sake of her mission, there was almost nothing Saikaira could do for her. He'd tried to advise her about thinking for herself and acting carefully amid an environmental upheaval that struck before she'd even developed independence, but she didn't take it in. And they didn't have the kind of relationship where he could make her understand at the cost of his own well-being. He'd grown tired of thinking about anything beyond work and ended up answering honestly. Yet when silence fell, he thought he might have messed up. But it was Camille who broke it. Ha, hee hee, ha ha ha, yes, that's right. The handsome man covered his mouth and shook with laughter. Saikaira found it a little unsettling, but it didn't seem like things were turning bad. Yes. You see, I like that side of you. So rational and so cunning. Cunning is rude, he thought, but he understood his actions weren't exactly moral. Kondo, what was your first name again? Saikaira. Saikairo? Names from your country are hard to pronounce. He didn't say the air in your country is poison, but he did think that pronunciation issues were, in part, ethnic and physiological. Say, Saikairo then. Yes. I'll remember. Truly capable people seem to absorb everything quickly. Speaking with you is genuinely worthwhile. I'll call for you again if anything comes up. It felt like he'd been told to be prepared, but if it was work talk, Saikaira didn't mind. A dialogue with the top of the country was, for Saikaira too, extremely meaningful. He bowed and left, returning to accounting. It was already fire hour, but Norbert and the others would surely have told Aresh that Saikaira had been summoned by the Chancellor. There was no need to force himself to go to the dining hall. He'd already had tea, so lunch was fine, he thought, and picked up documents in the empty accounting office. Of course, after work Aresh came to pick him up and tore into him harshly. On top of that, The tea he'd drunk in the Chancellor's room upset his stomach. Even the tea leaves absorb magic elements during processing, and magic is used as well. Don't drink anything I haven't specified. I can't even drink tea freely. With Aresh rubbing his stomach, kissing him as he did, Saikaira sighed internally.